HealingYourself.Life provides information for awareness, educational, and support purposes only and does not diagnose or prescribe treatment for any medical condition. Viewers are encouraged to do their own due diligence and consult with their own medical caregivers before making personal treatment decisions. Welcome back to HealingYourself.Life. We have a returning guest today. Dr. David Seaman is an expert on nutrition. He's here with us again to talk about a brand new book of his that just came out called Weight Loss Secrets You Need to Know. Dr. Seaman, thank you for joining us again here on HealingYourself.Life.
Thanks for having me again.
We were excited when you let us know that you had just written this new book. In fact, we told our viewers about it in a recent video we did, but we wanted to make sure that we had a chance to read it and discuss it. And now we got a chance to circle back with you. So we'd love to ask you some questions about it and that you kind of enlighten our viewers, because I'm sure they're going to be very interested in this topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's quite a few interesting topics. There was several that I wanted to touch on. There was more in the middle of the book. Well, I love also, first I should start with the calorie issue, because I think a lot of people think, well, if I only do the ketogenic, I don't have to count, calories or anything like that. So I thought that was an interesting one of, no, you still need to count your calories so that you're not over intaking what you're burning. If you're overtaking calories, you're going to not lose weight, right?
Yeah, the thing about the ketogenic diet is that if you eat fat tends to be more satiating. So, for example, think about eating an avocado.
Right, we talked about that once, yeah.
Last time, you eat one and you're kind of like, I'm done.
Right.
If you add guacamole and chips, then you can keep going.
Yes.
That's because of the chips.
Yes, yeah,
Not
those
because
are
you
great.
would just say, let's get rid of the chips and just start dipping in with the average person.
Chips and guacamole is a food and an activity. That's the difference.
That's true.
Once you get that automated motion started, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
The thing about fat, though, is that fat basically is much more satiating, and you kind of get done with fat.
Yes.
So it's easier to eat a diet that's ketogenic and not overeat, but you can easily become morbidly obese, riddled with heart disease and diabetes on a ketogenic diet. You'll just be in ketosis while you get sick.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's just difficult, though, because if you take something like chips, those special chips that were formed years ago, like Doritos, there's like 100 ingredients in there just so that you never get tired of eating. After an avocado or even macadamia nuts, you're kind of I'm not. They're easier to keep eating, but they're still, I'm done.
Right.
Anything that's sweet and sugary and deep fried, you never want to stop.
Well, the sweetness can be a real trick.
That's true.
Salty and sweet
together.
That
can be. Yeah.
So your first book that we had, or at least the first one we were aware of, that was the Deflame Diet, that talks about how we can either eat foods that cause inflammatory processes or anti-inflammatory, deflammatory processes.
Right.
And the new one, the Weight Loss Secrets book, we noticed right off the bat is much smaller, and in some ways it made it a real.
It's like a companion book, really, to the Deflame.
Yeah, a lot of it is like it'll drive you back into tables and detailed references.
Right, which is
but
great.
It gives you that feeling of quick success because there's like 3 and 4 page chapters. It's like, we got another one down. So.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but I love that there's a reference then. When you when you already have the Deflame Diet book, you can look and go, okay, these are the steps I need to take. I loved that aspect of it. I thought it was wonderful and very well written, both books. And the other issue I wanted to touch on was, there was the sleep and the stress, because I think those are also things.
You listed like a handful of factors that together can drive us to either overconsume or to maybe, regardless of what we're consuming, to put on fat. Can you maybe recap what those key factors are?
So we have certain biological factors that are kind of built in, like the body weight set point issue and their primordial drive to eat to survive. Like those are all normal things, and they're very, very easy to deal with if we were living in the way that humans were designed to live, which is being very, very active, essentially going to sleep when the sun goes down, getting up when the sun rises, getting a lot of sleep, not all these external stressors. So when you take the primordial drives, which drive us to eat, and then you add less sleep, more stress, and no exercise, and then eating the crappy foods that we love, the dietary crack, that changes our gut around. and now you have 4 drivers of obesity on top of the normal primordial drive to eat. And that becomes unbearably difficult for a lot of people.
And you were reflecting, as we looked at those factors, we were saying, well, at least we can really relate to the sleep issue and the stress issue.
Right. I think, and some people react a little bit differently to stress. For me, I would love to eat food when I'm stressed.
That's the majority of people. That's the majority.
It's a comfort.
It's a comfort thing. You're comforting yourself. So there are a few people that don't find it comforting, and I guess it also can depend on the type of stress. Some of us want to run it off, and that's also helpful. Yes, go exercise.
Yes, that's productive.
Yeah, that would be a productive thing to do, because that really does help our stress if we either do some fast walking or whatever, lift some weights, or for you is pulling weeds pulling weeds. That really gets.
You just got me thinking, because we were talking about it, and I said it's like the fight or flight. When I feel stressed, it's fight or flight. But that's the thing, in the civilized society and sort of trained in behavioral limits on myself, I feel like, well, I'm not permitted to fight in most settings,
right.
and running away, I got to stand and take it, whatever, if it's stress on the job, or financial stress, or relationship stress, or whatever. So it's like, okay, I can't fly away and I can't fight it, so I just kind of just stuff it, just hold it inside, and that for me is very then suppressive of wanting to eat. It's like I'm in fight or flight, but I'm not doing what I'm not. But you're right. The physical activity would be a perfect
a remedy to that. We don't always have that chance right away, but go ahead.
The majority don't, because they get up without enough sleep.
Right. So you're tired already.
Yeah, if both husband and wife are running out the door to go to work and getting the kids ready, that's stressful.
Yes.
And so you're up at the crack of dawn, maybe earlier, because you can't sleep well. You wake up a bunch at night, and you got to deal with the stress of getting out of the house. Now you're driving and you're in traffic, and you have either overt or covert road rage. So you're stressing there,
right?
And then you get to work, and now you're sitting in a room, you can't move, and now you have more stress. And so the most normal thing to do is to shove something in your mouth that will give you a pleasurable antidepressant moment.
Why do they have donuts at work? I mean, that's a breakfast.
Yeah. So then during the day you're sitting more, you're not exercising.
Right.
The average person is just not going to hop down to the ground and just give me 50 push-ups and a couple of lunges to kind of like shake it off.
Right.
You just shove it down your throat. And this is the average person. And they rush home, make dinner, deal with the kids' stuff, and then after that you're tired. Let's go exercise. Seriously, no exercise. Right. Try to get to sleep. And then so the stress, lack of sleep, and lack of exercise are very, very problematic.
Yes.
And so what one needs to do is recognize them. And in the book we talked about, so ghrelin, we mentioned before we started going. So ghrelin is really interesting. Ghrelin didn't exist when I was going to college and to chiropractic college.
Okay.
And so people who went to college or med school back then. So ghrelin, that term didn't exist. So to remember, just think of like the movie Gremlins.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So you got this eating gremlin. That's on when you're stressed out.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
So for the benefit of our viewers, what is ghrelin?
Yeah.
Well, ghrelin is a hormone that is basically a hunger hormone. Now, it's really interesting. So it was discovered that ghrelin is one of the body's natural antidepressant hormones.
Okay.
And that's fantastic if there wasn't 7-Eleven and eating centers everywhere.
Right.
And because historically when ghrelin turned on during stress or lack of sleep, it also drives us to want to eat dietary crack-like food, sugar, flour, and refined oils. But before there was sugar, flour, and refined oils, ghrelin couldn't drive you in that direction.
It wasn't available. Yeah.
Right. So ghrelin is a natural antidepressant.
Okay.
So we love ghrelin. The problem, we don't love ghrelin if you're stuck in a box with crappy lights and no windows and donuts everywhere. Then ghrelin is your enemy.
Okay.
Because you'll get some antidepressant effect that will not be, you really won't feel it because you don't have any chance to move, which is also antidepressive.
Interesting. Okay.
And now you're sitting there stuck in your mind, hating your job, knowing you have to drive home 2 hours of traffic. and then you don't sleep, and it just goes and goes and goes.
So when you made the crack earlier that ghrelin didn't exist younger, it certainly did exist physiologically, biologically, but you're saying it wasn't understood and it wasn't taught and it wasn't talked about.
Well, it wasn't talked about, so it wasn't understood when I went through school. But before there was calories everywhere, ghrelin wouldn't drive you to become obese because think about going back to. I make the joke. Watching old Yankee games. The only fat guy in Yankee Stadium was Babe Ruth. He's the only guy who could afford to overeat.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. Right. Sure.
Everybody in the stand was normal weight. Every player was normal weight. The umpires, everyone was normal weight.
Right.
So when we don't have available calories everywhere,
right,
and people were much more active back then, ghrelin's damaging effects weren't so robust as they are now. So we didn't know what it was. But the point though is it couldn't work its devilish side because there wasn't food everywhere, and people also were much more measured and careful with their eating. Right. People grew, so you're out weeding probably around food that you're growing too, right?
Yeah, right.
Not just weeding around the foliage. So you're weeding around food. So people grew their own food. They worked for their food. In the old days, people literally had to work really hard. Think about the
exactly
about the Irish peasants. They ate 5 to 10 pounds of white potatoes per day. Wow. If you did that now, the average person, everybody would be fat as a house.
Yes, right. And I think that is the problem. We're just not burning the calories.
Yeah.
It is interesting, though. We have a daughter, and they're in Israel temporarily, and she noticed how slim people are there. She said that she's just not. When they came back then to the United States, and she looked around. She said, "Oh my gosh, when I'm in Israel, I don't feel as skinny." But when I come back home, I look pretty skinny. So it's pretty interesting the difference, when you go. That's
just because the metric system and the English system, they measure differently.
Right. No. But I find that interesting. Why do you think that is? Is it just because they are eating better quality food and we in the United States? That was the other thing. I was appalled to see in the book. And I probably can't find it right away, but the ads that they had.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, could you talk about that? The official government.
Maybe that's part of it. Is Israel's not
propaganda campaign that drove us
propagandizing
for generations on eating bad.
It's unbelievable.
Page 22, 23. That's what they all are.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's actually interesting. This will fit in with your prepper crew. So there you go. It's really amazing to see how the USDA basically pushed. Yeah. Now the best one to look at is the page earlier.
Okay.
Simple suppers are best.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh. I couldn't believe that. Milk and bread. I was like.
Yeah. So there you go. So this is 1914, I think. Yeah. So feed your children bread, milk, and plain cookies. Yeah. That's the best.
Oh my gosh. I just couldn't believe that. Where are the greens?
Vigor Vitamin Donuts. Don't forget those.
Vitamin Donuts. There you go. Go to the next page. The ice cream cake.
Oh yes.
That looks so yummy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh.
Cake. And then look at the food pyramid. The food pyramid on the next page is eat bread, pasta, bread, rice, pasta, bread. Just keep eating that stuff. 11 servings a day.
Oh my gosh.
Cows.
11 to that's right.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? It's
just
my absolutely. Gosh. So I'm sure that your prepper audience, your reluctant preppers, are familiar with Edward Bernays.
Okay.
Like Bernays sauce?
No.
It's
spelled differently. Is Bernays.
Sorry.
Yeah, Edward Bernays. Okay. He is the nephew of Sigmund Freud.
Oh, okay.
And so basically, what Edward Bernays did when he was he was part of. It was a Woodrow Wilson CPI.
We have heard that
committee
name before.
For
now that's
something or other. And what they did, they set it up so that they would get, because Woodrow Wilson went into his second term, I guess it was, being an anti-war guy.
Okay.
And then the war starts, and so now he's got to go pro-war because that's how we roll. Yeah. And so he's got to trick everyone to get into war. And so he gets all these.
And he gets Bernays to propagandize everybody, right?
Yeah. And Bernays helped come up with the slogan, "We fight for democracy." And the whole Uncle Sam thing wants you. We fight for democracy. And so he goes over to the Treaty of Versailles after World War I, which essentially set the stage for World War II because of how ridiculously
punitive the damages were on
punitive
Germany,
damage levied on Germany. Yeah, and so he goes, if propaganda could be used so successfully for war, we can use it to sell stuff at home.
Right.
And so he came home. Yeah, it was in the book. He came home.
Yeah.
And he stopped using the word propaganda because that became a popular term used in the media for Germany's war propaganda. And so he came home and he started the first council for the term ever used before, public relations.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So if you Google father of public relations, and that's it, you should see Bernays. If you don't, you just add Bernays there, and there he is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he came back, and basically the big corporations, the politicians, they all communicated with him because he knew how to propagandize people, because he was essentially using Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic skills or psychoanalytic approach to advertise. And so the most devastating example of this is the fact that women were not smoking in 1929.
Okay.
They weren't smoking before that either. Much in public, never. I don't know about at home.
Okay.
So it would be a Philip Morris-like company, so a huge tobacco company, came to him and said, we're losing like half the our market share because women aren't smoking. What can you do? And he said, so Bernays said, can I talk to one of my uncle's students here in the States? So he went to Dr. So-and-so, charged like $100 or $150 for the hour back in 1929. You imagine how much that was, right?
Wow,
yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, so he said that basically there are two things. Men are doing it, and so they feel like men can do it, women can't. So they threw in the oppression of women by men just because of smoking, which of course it wasn't the guys doing it. It was just society. Yeah. But then the psychoanalyst talked about the anytime you put anything in your mouth and taste it, there's a sexual hormone activation to a low degree, but still. So basically, he said, you have to appeal to sexual and oppressive
Make it
factors.
Sexy to smoke.
Right. So you see women with the cigarettes looking sexy when they're smoking.
Right.
And then he decided, he called them torches of freedom. Overcome women's oppression of males by smoking in public.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
That's amazing. And
that is amazing.
So he had socialized, because he knew everybody, during the Easter Day parade in 1929. He had them basically at certain spots where he told all the cameramen, because he knew all the news outlets, stop, and they took pictures of women wearing their rocking cool outfits from the 29 or the Roaring 20s.
Right.
At certain spots during whatever was Fifth Ave or Madison Ave in New York City, and they would all pull out of their trench coats or cigarettes and light up their torches of freedom.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when you look at the whole food pyramid, which is the latest, there's been other things after that, but they're still very, very similar. It started 100 years before, basically, telling in 19 that your children should be eating simple, suppers, cake and cookies and milk. Whatever company came to say, hey, we just sell more of this, and they would go cranking away. Drink, a quart of milk a day. Eat pounds of cottage cheese. Eat corn in every meal. Have ice cream cake.
Yes.
Vitamin donuts for you. I mean, it's just amazing.
Wow.
So think about how, by Americans following the recommendations that the USDA gave them for the past 100 years, no wonder why we're a bunch of cows.
Right.
But it's scientific. It's modern.
Yeah.
What did I miss?
Oh my gosh, yeah. This is really very interesting. The other thing I thought of, with the prepper crowd is the deflame diet can really help, all of us, not just preppers, but not have that inflammation so we're not hurting and in pain. Also, the other aspect that I wanted to touch on was that, the aspect of losing weight is a great idea, so we're not carrying on too many pounds so that we're actually can be active and healthy and can do our thing. I have noticed that I think a prepper group wouldn't want to get too skinny because you wouldn't be able to survive as long,
reserves,
right? Yeah. But it seems to me a very reasonable idea And one of the things that surprised me, and maybe it shouldn't have from the Deflame diet, I'm sure you touched it on there too, was peanut oil. I didn't know how not good that was I didn't know it was an inflaming oil. So what other oils should we stay away from and only use, like what certain oils should we be using?
Well, if you look at the news, you're going to die if you eat coconut oil.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Oh
I
my
completely
gosh.
ignore that.
That's the latest
Right.
thing. Yeah. It's a tropical oil, therefore it's bad. Yeah. Right.
You're going to die, except for all those strange Polynesians who get all their fat from coconut oil, and they live to be 100 if they don't get injured and die of an infection, and they have no shoes. So I mean, historically, how did they pull it off?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
In fact, if you go down to the Solomon Islands and you go to Papua New Guinea, and there is a group called the Catawbans. Their primary calories are sweet potatoes, yams, taro root, and fruit, basic guavas and papaya, and they get most of their fat from coconut oil. So they're basically eating fructose, which has also been demonized. But it's not fructose. It's just fruit. Fructose by itself is a different story, but it's fruit and coconut oil.
Yeah.
And how long do they live? Well, the same thing.
I was just sorry to interrupt, but another key point for our preppers and for anybody is the goodness of the coconut oil. One, you can get it at Costco in a huge tub, organic, and it will last a long time. It doesn't go bad very quickly.
It tends not to go rancid.
It doesn't go rancid quickly. Let me just say that. It won't go quickly.
That's because it's saturated. Saturated fatty acids do not oxidize, so they don't go rancid.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And the antibacterial and antiviral qualities of it as well is huge and important for us all.
And there's something else that I think to augment what you guys were talking about earlier about from a preparedness standpoint, if you see the potential of hard times ahead, as some people do, how would you want to prepare for that? Well, some people say you stockpile a lot of food so you have shelf-stable food available. But another thing is evaluate your how much calories it takes for you to get through the day.
Good, yes.
And that's what Dr. Seaman has we talked about. You talked about I forget if it's intermittent fasting or different ways of reducing your body's expectation. And even eating a tablespoon of coconut oil in the morning first thing, it's like it switches your body over into thinking, okay, we're not going to starve today. Today's going to be okay. And we can scale down the, we're not going to have to like pack away things as fat today, so that kind of thing. Right. So you can be able to not go into that starvation mode, but instead you survive on fewer calories.
And I think the practicing of fasting is a great idea, also for not only for us who want to get healthy. Reading yours was like noon to 8. You were saying for me it works better if I go from like 10 to 6 or something. So
doesn't make any difference.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But the other idea of fasting for preppers is that it's a great thing to practice because you don't know always how accessible is food going to be to me, and I better practice now so I'm not going to be really angry and upset that I can actually still work with people when I'm hungry.
Yeah. Well, and the healthy food choices like Dr. Seaman was talking about is if you're always getting these, what do you call it, food crack highs, and you're used to these blood sugar spikes and that kind of thing. And then that's where you get really cranky rather than if you're used to a more
stable diet.
Sorry, I jumped in there. You were about to add something,
Go ahead.
Dr. Seaman.
Well, there are two things, because you made a joke about maybe it would be good to be preppers who are obese because when the big one hits.
I didn't say obese, but yeah.
You got a lot of reserves to live off of.
No,
yeah.
Will live longer. So what I would say, if someone actually is thinking that, what they should do is they should make sure that their blood pressure and blood sugar are normal. And they should stop gaining weight once their blood sugar and blood pressure become not normal. Because if you need medications,
not going to happen.
You kind of don't want to be needing medications if something bad happens.
Exactly.
So
that's true.
So what preppers could do is just get a bunch of dried beans, which are fantastic because they last forever until you soak them up and cook them.
Right.
That's what they're worried about. And cooked sweet potatoes, or grow sweet potatoes, they last. I still have 50 pounds of sweet potatoes from my harvest in October.
Oh, wow. Wow, and they're still good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Perfect, but they're still pretty good.
You can cut away the bad.
Do you store those in the basement, or how do you store those? What kind of temperature and humidity and light and dark?
Yeah, room temperature, dark. Yeah, basically, like I create a fake root cellar.
Do you make them like not touch each other, or they can all be in a burlap sack together, no problem?
I just put them into Now, I don't know if I'm doing this right or not. I mean, who knows? Because you never know for sure. It seems like this is the right thing. Paper bags, and then not a ton of them.
Yeah.
And then put them in boxes, and just keep them in.
So there's it can breathe a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, and keep
that makes sense.
Room temperature in the dark. Essentially, what would be a basement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I would think that anybody who is a prepper who's obese ought to be losing some pounds. I was just saying, I've heard that keeping a few extra pounds is not a bad idea, just so they have it to lose.
Yeah, if it's fashionable to go ultra low body fat, so that you can see every little striation in your muscle, and you're really on the 9% for guys and for whatever for gals or whatever. That doesn't mean you're going to have the most resiliency in the case of an upsetting situation.
Sure.
Right. So aside from that, we started this with the question about peanut oil.
Oh yes, sorry.
And so I'm sometimes I can circle back and remember stuff.
This is great.
It's exciting when that happens. I was like, oh, good, I'm not entering that domain yet. So
unlike us.
So for oils,
for
oils, it would be coconut, olive, and butter.
Okay, great. Yeah.
I mean, they have been used. They've been used for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Right.
No problem.
Yeah.
And if you want lard or beef tallow, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when people hear this, they think, oh, fat is really bad. And this new thing with the coconut oil. I did a video called Coconut Oil Fake News when the first scare came out about 6 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting how people sometimes are just not very sharp. Because I went through the American Heart Association article, and it was only like 1 or 2 paragraphs, not very much. It was very interesting. It was 2 inch. It was a 2-inch paragraph.
Wow.
And they only had 4 papers cited on coconut oil. Each one was accessible, so I got all 4 papers and I reviewed each one. And basically, their claims about coconut oil killing you were not supported in the papers that they cited. Right. So I went through that. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then people who watched the video said, "Oh, this is a shill video. This isn't something." I just showed you how bad the paper was. I mean, people don't listen.
Right. Sometimes, yeah. Or they'll rush through something.
Yeah. So the whole saturated fat thing really screws people up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wonder if that same article would have come out if there were a major U.S. big agra producer of coconut oil.
Right.
Because I bet Archer Daniels Midland and Cargill and Monsanto don't produce coconut oil, but they do produce corn oil.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they sure do. So peanut oil is high in omega-6 fatty acids. Most of those oils, so if you think about oils over history, coconut consumption, olive oil consumption, butter consumption, the other oils typically were used for lubrication and illumination, not for consumption.
Interesting.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was looking at was the eating too quickly. And I thought that would be another one that's so important, because I think in our society today, especially if you go to a fast food restaurant, which we typically try to avoid, it seems like even the surroundings, I don't know if the Edward Bernays is a part of this, but it seems like that atmosphere gets you to eat quickly. Maybe I'm just making that up, but it seems like in our fast-paced world, we also people are eating on the road. I see that, they're driving and they're eating, and they're not paying attention to the food that they're eating, so you don't even realize how many calories you're taking in. It's easy when you're, at a movie theater too, to eat a whole bin of popcorn and not realize, oh my gosh, I just ate all this fake buttered popcorn.
Right.
So I thought that was really good. And if you want to clarify a little more about how we should be eating our food.
Well, if you think about what they did in the study was they had the same amount of calories consumed over 30 minutes or 5 minutes. And if you ate it in 30 minutes, you were satisfied. If you ate it in 5 minutes, you're hungry.
Yeah, I have noticed that with myself. If I eat very quickly, I feel like I'm still hungry. What happened to this? And if you wait a little while, even though after you've eaten after 5 minutes, if you just give your body time to catch up, which is the thing, then you will finally have that satiated feeling. But it certainly takes a while, in my mind, if you eat fast. And I really find that when we go out for dinner and we know it's going to be a relaxing evening and we can take our time, you feel full. I feel like I can eat half of what I was going to. Or if I'm talking with friends and eating, it's funny because I know sometimes talking with friends, you don't even realize how much you're eating. But if you're slowed down and you are concentrating on eating slow you do get fuller fast, and you eat about half of what they give you at a restaurant, because they give you far too much usually at a restaurant. So,
well, when you think about it, if you just go to a restaurant, you get an appetizer that's not terribly inflammatory, so it's actually healthy for you.
Right.
Maybe a glass of wine, some water, and you have one piece of bread just because people want to have some bread, and you sit there. 15 minutes later, you're kind of full. I mean, everyone has said, and now the meal comes, it's like, I'm totally full now.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah. That's very true. Yeah.
And so that speaks to the eating slow, and so it's kind of, I don't know if it actually works like this, but the part of your brain that's involved in sensing calories and satiety is called your hypothalamus. And so it's just kind of like right between your ears, like the lower part of your brain.
Okay.
And like right in the middle, you just bisect your nose and your ears, kind of like right about there.
Okay.
And if you eat really fast, you basically you outpace the hypothalamus's ability to feel satiated.
Right.
And so then if you do that, you're like, you're fine, you're pigging out, and then after you pig out in 15 minutes, and you stop for a couple seconds, if by minute 31, now you feel like you're ready to explode, and you didn't even eat a whole lot more because your brain catches up essentially.
Exactly.
It's shocking.
We were just talking about eating quickly.
Yeah,
eating
right.
slowly.
And I heard that as I was leaving. I ran to grab some examples of some of the healthy fats we were talking about. But I just wanted to agree that I remember when that changed for me was both at school we had a very limited time to eat, but especially like at college, I was actually running across campus to catch my bus after class to go to work while shoving sandwiches down as I ran across campus. And then at work, it's often becomes eat at your desk while you're trying to quick get ready for a meeting, and because there's no time to do that sort of thing. And when that just becomes chronically habitual, you're trying to squeeze. You talked about stress earlier. You're just trying to squeeze that little bit of productivity, a little bit more into your day,
and that's just to me. That just starts inflaming your body too from
or
this
eating
rush.
while you're driving, and everything, just because you can't imagine the extravagance of sitting there and having a half-hour breakfast at home before you leave, and an hour lunch at work or whatever. It's just like you can't even imagine that. There would be no time left in your day. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, we're just not taking the time to not only eat well, but eat and enjoy the company that we have. We're eating alone sometimes, which I think is not always the best, rather than having that companionship to be eating together.
Yeah,
so
all those emotional things play a role too. And then if you actually do have a couple of days where no matter who you are, if you eat a few less calories, so you actually drop a couple pounds, your brain will subconsciously cause you to overeat almost unconsciously to get back to the weight that you were. And I've seen this myself where I'm like, I'm not really hungry, but some reason something's telling me to eat.
Exactly. Yes.
Like, it's interesting. I said, because I probably ate less calories yesterday. And so what that is your brain has a set point.
Yeah.
It's a body weight set point.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, if you weigh 200 and you go down to 180, your brain has tasted 200 and it wants you back there.
Right.
And so people will say, well, diets don't work, and they don't realize that everybody is fighting a body weight set point. I mean, they're very, very rare. So then again, you'll be kind of an outlier who has a hard time gaining weight as an adult male. Yeah. It's more of a problem for like teenagers. Once I had a hard time too when I was young, and it was tough because I was athletic, but I weighed so little. I was just I got thrown around like it was awful. But after college, I could easily gain weight because, and I don't know exactly what kind of kicks in at that point. But so you're kind of an outlier where you have a hard time gaining weight. Yeah. But the average person, no matter who they are, to lose a little bit, they go through emotional and physiological war within. And either they're starving and they just pig out because they're starving, or they're just eating because something's pushing me. And that's the body weight set point. Yeah. Because your body wants you to weigh where you are, because if you think from the perspective of 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, if you lose 10 pounds, what happens if you can't find food over the next 5-10 days?
That's right.
You're like dead. So the body weight set point is really, really an important issue, and that's what people don't realize when they lose weight. Like, anyone can commit for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I mean, almost everybody who's ever wanted to lose weight has done it, but they don't have a strategy after they stop doing this diet thing, that whatever it is doing.
Yeah, and you address it in your book too. I wanted to say that this whole aspect of once we're off that diet, then we start gaining back some of the weight that we've lost, rather than realizing, no, we still need to be mindful of the calories that we're taking in, or the idea of kind of going on and off diets, I don't think is really a great idea to begin with, rather than just eating the healthy deflamed food and eating in moderation, so that we're not, and either then also upping your activity level.
Right.
If you want to eat more, you better up your activity level to do that. So I think that's really important too, and it is addressed in the book, which I think is a very important aspect, because it's so easy. I think most people who have dieted gain weight back because
that's a common complaint.
Yeah.
Well, that's my brother on the cover of the book, and his is an interesting story. You can see him on the left there. He was a very athletic guy, probably the most. So there are three brothers. He was probably the most athletic of all of us, because he had the older brothers basically teaching him, essentially.
Okay.
He's 10 years younger than I, and 8 years younger than our other brother.
Okay.
And so he was extremely coordinated, great athlete. I mean, good. He was AAA baseball caliber, probably.
Wow.
If he was really fit and really focused, he could have made the bigs, possibly. Okay. So he gets injured, and his life is like, an active life is gone.
That's so hard. Yeah.
And what he developed was cervical dystonia, which is this brutal spasm of typically one or more of three groups, and it just pulls your head and keeps pulling you and pulling you.
Wow.
And whenever you're awake, you're being pulled, and it hurts. It hurts brutally. And then when you sleep, you're fine, but you wake up and it's pulling.
Oh my gosh.
And then, it's just awful. And they get injections, Botox injections, and other things. He's straight now, and he looks great, but he still suffers from the condition where some days he's just on his back 6 hours just dealing with the pain.
Oof.
Yeah, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. So
Wow.
imagine being 190, and then being, I forget how old he was. It was 2002, so I guess he was about 31, 32. Okay. And he stopped everything. He's laying on the ground, and then and because he's athletic, and most guys tend to fight disease in a different way. Women tend to use Aikido. Men do Shotokan karate or judo and just start boxing. He fought it as opposed to being more. And it just, in his case, was very, very severe. So he would tend to go to bed late at night and put on top of frozen pizza extra calories and many beers. It went from 190 in 2002 to the end of 2006, middle of 2006, the dude weighed 340.
Yeah. Wow.
And he's my height, maybe an inch taller, maybe a quarter inch taller. Okay. But when he was 340, I felt like he was 6'8", because he was just so massive.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, just massive, and he had fat hair. His head was fat. Everything is just this huge-looking guy.
Yes, right.
And then he just decided that he couldn't live like this anymore. So he basically, without knowing all the details that are in the book, he just dealt with, because he's very, very disciplined guy. Okay. He just made the commitment. And so within 6 to 8 months, 6 months to a year, he went from 340 to what you see there on the right, 190 again, and he's been that weight since the end of 2007.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because he is completely committed to eating appropriately, and he does not let the primordial drives take over. He just goes and just deals with it, because he uses you have to use the right frontal area of your brain that everybody has is the part of your brain that can control all bad behaviors.
And I think that's a key, what you're talking about here, because in our society today, it's not about controlling bad behaviors at all. If it feels good, do it. Who cares? And
it's only wrong if you think it's wrong.
That's right. So we've lost.
Do what thou wilt. It's an Aleister Crowley society. Do what thou wilt.
Yeah. So we've lost that ability to. So it does taking a retraining of our brains and our thought process of. Actually, no, discipline is actually good for us, and it's actually freeing, because if you get into an obese body, you're not free anymore. You're slave to the foods that are full of sugar and full of that, and you think, I'm free because I can eat or do whatever. It really takes your freedom away, and I think that's the thing that people don't always understand, is that do you realize how much you're losing when you become obese? For those people who like theme rides, you can't fit on the rides anymore. You can't hardly fit in an airplane seat anymore. You can't be as active. You can't play with your kids anymore. So I think there's a real motivation to say, no, actually discipline frees us, and we need to be disciplined about the way we're eating and the way we're exercising, so that we feel optimally well. And I love the idea of the deflame diet and the lack of inflammation then in our bodies to make us feel better. And I'm finally feeling in that sense, because I know when we talked earlier, I was still having some neck issues, and I have a little, but I feel better as a whole in the aspect of less muscle aches and pains. So that's a really good thing.
You've been on this low carb for about 9 months now, 10 months?
Yeah, well, about a year.
About a year,
yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, and something we didn't touch on was back to the oil aspect. And you brought out the avocado oil. We really like...
Well, he brought up avocados.
Oh, did you? Oh, yeah, you had the eating. But we like the oil, too, and I'm assuming that's good oil as well.
That's fine. Avocado oil is just expensive olive oil.
Okay.
Well, so people get to look at it. There's organic olive oil, just to remind people that if you can get organic, that's better.
The other thing,
version is what you want to.
Yeah, and I like this. There's a particular brand of avocado mayonnaise. It has no sugar, so that was really important to us. Yeah, that was really important to us not to have the sugar when we were doing the Candida diet. And this is not easy to find. It was on Vitacost. I can't find it in any stores around here.
Wow.
I also want to plug
amazing.
the organic butter because the other thing is, when Dr. Seaman says butter, I bet he means real butter. Because when I was a kid, my parents had gone hook, line, and sinker with this oleomargarine thing. That was also like World War II. That was like a patriotic thing to do, is to switch over to margarine so you save butter for the troops or whatever. But afterwards, they just stayed on it. And they called it butter. When I was a kid, we'd say, pass the butter. And down would come the stick of... And then I remember William Shatner came out for Promise over, and now it's corn oil. It's really good for you. Now it's corn margarine. That's way better than... Yeah. So there's all this... Real butter is real butter, okay? And then here's the
the coconut oil.
Evil coconut oil that we eat by the tub here. So this is again organic. Okay.
Yeah. So when people see that, for some weird reason, they assume that you're going to just sit there and eat it like ice cream, as opposed to a couple tablespoons.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that 200 calories or more, but let's call it 200 calories of coconut oil is going to kill you is shocking. Because the average American is living on 60% almost for the average of their calories are sugar, flour, and oils, as in basically donuts and pretzels and French fries and all the rest of it. I mean, that's what people are living on. And somehow they're going to blame a 200 calorie, 300 calorie piece of steak for dinner and a couple hundred calories of coconut oil during the day. Which, I mean, imagine if that's all you ate. You would be thin as can be. You would have, you'd be way too thin, obviously. But the idea that somehow that would trash, I mean, it's just really bad thinking for smart people. And I don't know if it's, brainwashing. I mean, I think brainwashing is a good word, but I think it's probably more just like repetitive conditioning, because people have been told over and over again that these things are bad, these things are bad, these things will make you fat, these things will make you fat, and back to your point about people who are overweight and what they can do that, and they don't feel well. Part of the other issue for them is that they feel as if they are not in control.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And they are actually not in control. So like think about it. Imagine getting into your brain if you could, right? So you have to, I mean, and maybe the movie Ghost is the good way to look at it. Remember when Swayze's character got killed and all of a sudden the body's dead?
Yes.
And there he is, right? The light version of him. So just imagine that story is true. So now you're sitting in your body, like you're sitting in a car. And you're on the highway, and you take your hands off the wheel and just let the car drive. That car will likely kill you. Now you're sitting in your body, and you draw yourself out of your frontal lobe. And now all discernment goes away, and every manner of unhealthy impulse emerges and is given power because of the lack of inhibition, because we've withdrawn ourselves from. It's been called like the seat of reason.
Abdicating responsibility for our own supervisor.
And just as to sympathize with people who are at that place, I was at that place where I had to have my M&Ms. I mean, every single day. I mean, this is crazy.
It was a big bowl.
Yeah, it had
like
a huge
mixing bowl.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you. And I would have like handfuls every day. It obviously didn't help my inflammation. And to now look at M&Ms at the store, I'm at the point now where it's like, yeah, they still look good, but it's like, why would I want to bring them home? You know, you just don't want to bring them home because you know that temptation will be there. And now, and it was also is like, okay, I think people don't always realize, like, this was like, okay, in order to get well, I needed to get off sugar, and we both did for quite a while. When you know it's a health issue and you know, look, if I don't do this, I'm just going to get sicker and sicker and sicker, and I won't be able to eat any of the foods because we were having leaky gut and things like that, so having to heal that up as well. It was just, it's an amazing experience. You've got to give it a try of, you know, getting rid of those bad foods. And it may take 6 months, you know, especially if you've been doing this for 10, 20 years.
First we felt sorry for ourselves for the first 3 months.
Yes, you feel...
And we felt just panicky and like, there's nothing I can eat. I'm going to...
Right, no food.
My life is over.
Right there, you're describing the average obese person or overweight person's mental state. Because
that's why I'm saying I sympathize. I sympathize.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of being able to say, you know what, I'm going to get through this, and it will get better. And by the time you're actually through the 6-month, 7-month period, you're actually feeling better, and you're realizing, okay, I wouldn't say I'm frightened or terrified of eating sugar, but it's like, no, this is going so well, I don't want it, you know. Yeah, we did go on a cruise and we had some sugar, but the amazing thing is now, once we're off and I go, when I get home, I'm going back to my diet, it works and we can do it. So just to give people hope out there that really, if you really give it a good go of getting rid of sugar in your life, it really is helpful. And
the other thing, whenever our dogs do something really incautious and hurt themselves, like our one, you know, he's healing from a leg injury, and yet he'll do these big tough dog moves. It's like, oh, I know he can see it coming, and he's limping around for a day or two afterwards because he didn't take care of himself. But I think he's not associating this consequence that he's suffering now for days with what happened. But I think even in our having given up sugar, we were feeling sorry for ourselves. We knew we were feeling deprived. We were feeling those urges. But then you mentioned that after several months, this well-being started sneaking up on us.
Yes.
And you don't notice it as much. Oh, my neck isn't hurting as much or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But I feel like I'm just like the dog there. I'm not associating those feelings of improved well-being that's sneaking up with all that deprivation. I just remember the deprivation. And I'll still find ourselves, like, we're at the pizza and beer bar, and I watch the beers go by, and I'm thinking, oh, man, look at those. and so I still find myself, like, longing for the good old days when I didn't have to be careful.
Oh, interesting.
But like what you said in the grocery store, when you're going down and you see these aisle after aisle of empty junk, I see it now. It's like somebody took the glasses off me. Now I can see, oh my gosh, there's nothing here in this grocery store. There's 1,000 things, and there's only 10 things in this whole store that are worth eating.
Do you think if you had the information that's in that new book about the emotional stuff, that would have helped you a little bit? It
would have helped.
Yeah, yes, I think so.
Yeah, because nobody really spends much time because eating is emotional.
Yes,
and so if you think about, so you hold up just more a little bit. The other side.
Yes.
So let's look at what makes us fat. So we have this obesogenic environment. We have Bernays' consumeristic propaganda, temptations everywhere. Yeah. We have an instinctual drive to eat. Now, those are there whether we do anything or not. Then stress makes you fat. Lack of sleep makes you fat. You get fat. You're inflamed. Now that makes you more fat. Wrong gut flora. Set point. We're dietary crackheads. I mean, and then if the sense of smell makes you fat, I mean, it's just never ending. Never ending. So if someone has this and realizes that there might be pain, but if you think about the battle that's coming, and then in your mind, visualize yourself not living here,
right?
Because it's very difficult to live here in your frontal cortex, where good decisions are made. It's very difficult to be here, and a common language. This is being mindful. Mindful means that your frontal cortex is working.
Right.
So think about sitting in the front seat of your car, holding your wheel, right? That's being mindful.
Right.
Now imagine being on the highway by yourself and just getting into your back seat.
Right.
It's over.
No, right, exactly.
Yeah. Talk about you're flaking, you're shaking, you're everywhere, you're going crazy.
Yes.
And most people, when they change their diets around, they almost like live still back here. I got to do this for this, and they don't realize, they don't like make a decision. Just making the decision to live in the front seat of your mind
exactly
can mitigate the suffering that you went through during during that 6-month period.
Yeah. The book would have really helped us. Yeah.
Much more rapidly.
Yeah.
So when my brother, not the brother that's on the cover of the book, the other one we had was about 220 or so, and he's like, I don't want to be the fat brother. I mean, what do I do? So I said, well, you just got to stop eating sugar, flour, refined oils, and eat vegetables and meat, and you can eat nuts, eat some nuts, not a ton, because a lot of calories there.
Sure.
And so he went from 220, 230 to like 170. And he didn't go through any of what you're talking about.
Because he had
intentionality was behind the whole thing. Yeah.
So like this, let's just say that you are wanting to compete in some event, and you have to get fit, right? You're going to commit to fitness, and when you're living in that commitment state, you're not going, "Oh, poor me."
Right, because you're committed. I want to have this success.
You're committed.
Yes.
You're holding that benefit, that good out in front of yourself.
And you're not mindful of, I think that's the other thing in our society is instant gratification. I want to be in, nobody looks at, goes, okay, it's going to take me 5 minutes to get in shape and I'll be ready for that. That would be ridiculous.
That's what it says right here. Buy this book, it'll take 5 minutes.
By the way, just, I want to make that book a free Kindle for everybody to get.
Oh, wow.
But Kindle doesn't, so the hardcover is only $13, but you get for Amazon, so that's nothing.
Yeah. Right.
But the Kindle, if you have Prime Video or Prime Amazon membership, it's free.
Wow.
But otherwise, it's 99 cents. So essentially, the book is free.
Yeah, it's a great. And there's a lot of great information. I will say, I thoroughly enjoyed reading. Well, both books are very good, but just because of this one, again, you can access the big book through this little book because it has. And then you can just I'm gonna find topical references. Yeah, but this is so good because I feel like you feel that sense of success of getting through each chapter.
5-minute reward.
Yeah, right, exactly. But there's also packed full of information that's really good, and I think it also emphasizes and gets into that sympathy of, hey, there is a such thing as emotional eating, which I think, yes, it's been covered before, but I don't know, in the detail of, giving our bodies what we need so that we can succeed, the sleep, the learning how to deal with our stress levels,
and the exercise,
and the food, and what kinds of food. I'm not sure that, especially like if you look at Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers, they don't even concentrate on the quality of food that you're eating. Jenny Craig, you just eat what they give you, and you're going to lose weight. But if you go back to eating everything, you're still not deflaming your body, which is going to feel better. So I feel like you're not getting the success then of my body's actually feeling better and well. Whereas following the Deflame diet, you're not only going to lose weight, but you're going to feel well in the end, which I think is huge.
Yeah, we talked about that. I think when we interviewed you about the Deflame diet book, is how many chronic illnesses are inflammatory processes, and maybe you could just remind people of kind of some of the headliners of chronic illnesses that people deal with in our culture that are inflammatory at their root.
Yeah, chronic aches and pains, headaches, fibromyalgia, widespread pain, the perpetuation of injuries. If you're flamed up, you get injured, chances are you're going to stay in pain longer. Yeah. And while you sit there and now you're overweight, you already are inflamed, so now you're going to develop potentially osteoarthritis, if you're unlucky, rheumatoid arthritis, and then heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's. I mean, you think about life in general, life is kind of like painful in general. I mean, think about how bizarre this is, right? You live and you watch people you love go away, and then you get old and you hurt. I mean, it's just a lot of pain, and you get some short-term pleasure from overeating, but the long-term scenario is quite problematic. And the reason why I didn't have the weight loss stuff in the Deflame diet book itself is because people have such emotional issues and non-frontal lobe thinking about issues when it comes to food that let's just say. So, for example, I'm friends with Lauren Cordain, who wrote the first book called The Paleo Diet.
Okay, sure.
If the name Lauren Cordain isn't on it, I wouldn't listen to it. I mean, he is the paleo guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So his website is thepaleodiet.com.
Okay.
Now, so his book is not dissimilar from mine in terms of recommendations. I mean, there are some different just because paleo days, and depending upon where you were, there are certain like potatoes were really not part of the historical paleo world for the app. So it's different a little bit than mine. But if people really like the paleo diet, they can still use my Weight Loss Secrets book and focus on that diet if that suits them.
Right.
If someone is like hardcore, I'm doing pure veganism. So there are obese vegans. So there are obese vegans, and the reason why is because they don't understand the drivers that make them overweight. They think, oh, vegan is fine. So it makes no, if you are a pure vegan, follow your vegan diet, but you have to understand all of the emotional, physiological, psychological, primordial barriers that we all have to deal with. So that's why I had the weight loss part separately, because someone say, well, the only way to lose weight, according to Seaman, is to do his exact deflame recommendations.
Okay.
Well, I'm not saying that you should do the Twinkie diet, but if you do the Twinkie diet, you could lose weight too.
That wouldn't be healthy necessarily, right?
Healthy, but you can still train your brain.
Right.
What it really is a brain training scenario.
Right.
We have to force ourselves from the lower brain or the back seat of the car into the front seat, put our hands on the wheel, and if we're stressing and not sleeping, and not exercising,
and eating too fast,
well, before we do that, we have to be aware, because those guys drive us a little bit too fast.
Right.
So if we're aware of those things, if we're aware of those drivers that will make us feel food-wise weird and I need to eat, if we're aware that not sleeping, stressing, not exercising is going to make us more hungry or maybe more food irritable, and you're in your front seat of your mind, you'll be able to handle that better. Go, okay, this is just rumblings. I'll drink a big glass of water now.
Right.
Maybe have maybe a couple 100 calories or 100 calories of nuts, a lot of water, feel the fullness, and then I'm going to sit in my front seat and I'm going to deal with the fact that I'm up, because also not sleeping as much means you're awake longer. You can eat longer.
That's very true. Yes. Right.
So you have to be aware of the urges that are going to appear, and if you're sitting in the back seat of your body's mind, and there's no one with the hand on the wheel, you'll eat stuff that why did I do that? If you ever stop,
right,
because the individual is not sitting in the front seat. Now I say this because I find myself at times going, look at this, I'm in the back seat.
Right.
I wrote a chapter about the front seat, and I'm in the back seat. How did that happen? It's because stress, lack of all this stuff can knock us out of the front seat of our mind, in the frontal lobe of our mind, and we're in the back seat, and you got to jump back in the front seat.
That's right.
And that's how one has to deal with all these urges and train oneself to deal with this. And that's why the 10-6 that you're doing, or rather the 16-8 that you're doing, just different hours than I'm doing.
Yeah.
But the 16-8 is really good, because now you're like, okay, you have to be in the front to stop eating.
Right.
When you get up,
you
have to be in the front seat of your mind to not eat until 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and then stop at 6 or 8. And that trains you to use the front of your brain.
Which I think is critical for the reluctant preppers and all of us, so that we're training ourselves continually to be disciplined, to do those things. So I think that's critical and very important.
I've been wanting to add in one more thing, because you really got me thinking. About 5 minutes ago, you were talking about the inflammatory process and how it helps to reduce our injury and levels and recovery quicker from injuries. If we have a deflamed system. And I was just thinking about that, how we've been following this low sugar, low refined carbs diet for some time. Yeah. And
really staying away from wheat and doing gluten-free
and grains.
And, things like
and just about a month ago, and our viewers will know about this on our other channel, Reluctant Preppers, and I think I might have posted it here. I started a very rigorous training program with a personal trainer, and I've been afraid that I would get some injuries, and I've had some strains. I had a strain in my quadricep here. I had a strain in my back and everything, but I've healed remarkably quickly.
Right, yeah.
And it's just like one of those things. I didn't notice it till just now we're talking about it. It's like,
right, yeah.
Oh yeah, it would have stuck around for days, and it's just these things are healing much more quickly. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
You absolutely want to be as deflamed as possible, because you don't know what kind of injury is coming your way.
That's right. Yeah,
you don't know. And the last thing that you want to be is a flamer and then get injured.
Yeah, it takes forever.
And then who knows if you end up, you're hurting so much, you get an opiate prescription.
Right.
80% of the opiate addicts start with a prescription.
Wow, that's incredible. I had no idea.
Gee whiz, talk about a gateway drug.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's a gate. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So
Like the gateway onto the highway where you're not holding onto the wheel.
And I think that, people don't realize how addictive things can be. I have an uncle who went through AA, was an alcoholic, and he has continually have to remind his doctors, do not
prescribe me things that could possibly be addictive
because I have addictive personality. I will get addicted to it. And so
he's had to be very vigilant.
And he even then, like if he does get a prescription, he'll go to the pharmacist and he checks with the pharmacist, says, is this going to be a problem for me? Yeah. So just to double check. And so I think that's really wise. And it sounds like a lot of us are really not either we're addicted to food or we have, and it sounds like that's kind of normal in our body because
if you weren't addicted to food, you'd be dead.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's good to have the little reminder. Note to self: don't starve today. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, the primordial drive to eat is essentially it's not addiction physiology for the pure scientist.
Right.
But you have to want to eat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you die.
That's right. Yeah.
And so if there's this, because it's actually a scientific term is called the obesogenic environment is one of the first chapters.
You've got that in the book. Yep.
That's a scientific term. We live in an environment now that if you don't sit in your frontal lobe and you're in the back seat of your mind, you will be obese or overweight. It is, there you go, our obesogenic environment. Absolutely.
Okay.
Dr. Seaman, we would like to talk more about this. We're out of time for this session, but I know that our viewers are going to appreciate this. Guys, remember to put your comments down below if you have additional suggestions or questions, and make sure that you click the subscribe button wherever it is, and the like button, and put the little bell on so you'll get notified of future editions. And we're going to have Dr. Seaman back on again. And if you like this conversation, we've had a couple of previous ones with him, so search his name and our channel, and you'll find more talks.
You have your own website, is that right?
Deflame.com.
Deflame.com. Okay.
And then
so people can get more information.
YouTube is Deflame Nutrition.
Deflame Nutrition.
I try to post stuff there that is sort of news-based because people get all off the track. They start. I get emails. Oh my God, I'm doing coconut. Is that safe? And it just people get so easily freaked out.
Yeah.
Because of this onslaught of propaganda that they get hit with.
Right.
Yeah.
So say your YouTube channel again.
Deflame Nutrition.
Deflame Nutrition. Okay.
Yeah, and if people do put comments down below, we can orient the next talk, if you wish, regarding their comments.
Okay.
But they just can't say, how do I treat this, because that's not how you just can't divine how someone should be treated over the internet.
Exactly. Yeah, that's hard. That one doesn't work so well.
Yeah. And the other thing too is people think that they have special issues why they're overweight. Very, 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 very few men have the problem of I can't gain weight. Okay, it's like you're like a major outlier, dude. And
our daughter-in-law is the same way. Frankly, she just cannot. Yeah. It's so hard for her.
So and remember, guys, if you see any government publication that looks like
this.
Better double check somewhere else. So. Okay. All right, Dr. Seaman, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back again here on HealingYourself.Life.
Great.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.